It's this absolutely chilling phenomenon that just instantly grabs your attention, isn't it? Suspects who smile while they're in handcuffs. You see someone accused of just an unthinkable crime, being led away by police, and instead of hiding their face or, looking terrified, they're smirking. Today, in this explainer, we are breaking down a highly disturbing case out of Texas to figure out exactly why suspects smile during an arrest. We're going to look at the deep psychological disconnect behind this behavior, and just as importantly, how investigators and prosecutors actually use that exact same smile as a weapon in the courtroom. So we are starting with this incredibly jarring piece of footage from Del Rio, Texas. The person we're looking at here is 19-year-old Amaya Diaz, who goes by Cookie. As she's being put into the back of a police cruiser, she literally looks right at a camera operated by a local citizen, flashes a smile, and casually jokes, "Stop recording." She's acting as if she's just been caught pulling some kind of harmless prank, right? But the reality is she and two others had literally just been arrested in connection to a horrific, bloody murder that happened barely 2 hours prior. We're looking at some intense cognitive dissonance here. It's like two entirely different realities just clashing together. On one side, a 32-year-old mother of 5 has just been brutally hacked to death on a busy street, multiple lives completely shattered. On the other side, the 19-year-old suspect is just laughing and making flippant remarks. So how can someone react this way after being accused of taking a life? And from a legal standpoint, how does this totally remorseless behavior completely doom their legal defense down the line? To understand the weight of that smile, we actually have to look at what happened.
Okay, Section 1, Broad Daylight Brutality. Let's look at the crime itself to really understand just how shocking the suspect's reaction actually is.
So the victim in this case was Caroline Penna, affectionately known to all her friends as Caro. She was 32 years old, a totally dedicated mother of 5. And according to her friends, she was a fighter and just deeply beloved by her community. But on a Thursday afternoon, Caro was violently ambushed. And the crazy thing is, this wasn't hidden away in some dark, empty alleyway. This attack happened right out in the open, on the 800 block of 10th Street in Del Rio, right near a busy Sonic restaurant, on one of the town's most bustling roads. It was just a brazen act of violence, committed in broad daylight. Tragically, Caro was stabbed 3 times. Medical reports show she was stabbed twice in the back and once in the stomach. The severity of these injuries was so massive that the local facilities in Del Rio actually couldn't handle it, and she had to be emergency transported to San Antonio in a desperate attempt to save her life. Now, when you look at the timeline, you've realized just how incredibly fast-moving this whole thing was. Police get the 911 call about the stabbing victim at 2:10 p.m. By 4 p.m., thanks to some really swift detective work, police are already at a house arresting Cookie Diaz and her 21-year-old sister, Kitty Mia Diaz. And this is the exact moment Cookie is caught smiling on camera. Meanwhile, Carol Pena is still alive. She's fighting for her life in a hospital bed. It wasn't until 9 p.m., a full 5 hours after that smiling video was taken, that Caro tragically succumbed to her injuries. Which brings us to Section 2, the social media disconnect. So we have the brutal facts of the case, but now we need to ask why. Why are suspects like this entirely unfazed? To figure that out, we have to look at the psychological profile of these individuals. Let's start with Cookie's older sister and co-suspect, Kitty. Just a few weeks before her arrest, Kitty Diaz posted this highly curated, super wholesome video on TikTok featuring her 4-year-old son. In the caption, she wrote, "Thank you for saving me, giving me purpose, and showing me a love so pure and unconditional. You will always be my greatest blessing." On the surface, she is projecting this image of a deeply loving, dedicated, and grounded young mom who lives entirely for her kid.
Which naturally forces us to ask a really difficult and honestly disturbing question. How does the person portraying themselves in this TikTok end up in a mugshot just days later, accused of a vicious homicide? Like, how do you go from posting about unconditional love to being part of a trio arrested for hacking another mother to death, all while your sister just laughs during the arrest? Well, retired NYPD detective David Sarney sheds some pretty fascinating light on this for us. He suggests we're seeing a deeply fractured moral compass here, one that's basically fueled by this obsession with social media and constantly chasing likes. The line between online performance and real-world consequences is just gone. Add in the group dynamics of acting with your friends or your siblings, and they essentially just feed off each other's disconnected energy. They simply don't grasp the real-world gravity of their actions. All right, moving on to Section 3, weaponizing the perp walk.
Because while psychologists are analyzing that moral compass, detectives are looking at exactly how to use it to lock suspects behind bars.
In law enforcement, this public walk to the cruiser is called a perp walk. And it's not just for getting them from point A to point B, it's actually an active investigative tool. As Detective Sarni points out, the emotional attitudes displayed during a perp walk are a huge piece of the puzzle. Detectives are closely watching how the suspect acts. Are they crying? Are they silent? Or, in Cookie Diaz's case, are they jovial and cracking jokes for the camera? And here is why that matters so much in a court of law. A smile effectively destroys a legal defense. Think about it. Down the road, a defense attorney is almost certainly going to try and spin a narrative, right? They might argue to a jury that these girls are deeply remorseful, that the situation just got way out of hand, or that it was some terrible, tragic accident. But prosecutors, they'll just take that video of the smiling perp walk and play it right there for the jury. You absolutely cannot credibly claim genuine remorse or accidental involvement when there is video evidence of you laughing in handcuffs just hours after stabbing a mother of 5. As Detective Sarni puts it, that attitude is completely damning. Which leads us to Section 4, building an airtight case. Because behavioral evidence is powerful, for sure, but investigators still have to back up that smiling arrest with hard, indisputable facts.
To do this, detectives methodically lock down the case using a pretty proven playbook. Step 1, isolate the weakest link. When you have 3 suspects, like Cookie, Kitty, and their 21-year-old friend Condra Foz, investigators will figure out who they believe is the least culpable, get them in an interrogation room, and basically leverage them to turn on the others. Step 2, leverage public surveillance. Because this whole thing happened in broad daylight near a Sonic, detectives will scour that area for video cameras that might have captured license plates or even the attack itself. It leaves the suspects with 0 room to lie about who held the knife. And finally, Step 3, execute search warrants. They will immediately seize the suspects' vehicles, their cell phones, their entire digital footprints, really, to find the murder weapon and establish the solid connection between the attackers and Caro Pina. We still don't know the exact motive for this horrific attack, but it leaves us with this really lingering question. If a jury sees concrete video of a brutal stabbing, immediately followed by a suspect just laughing in handcuffs, do they even need to hear a motive? A vicious act paired with a chilling smile might honestly be all the proof they need.